Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the REDX podcast, or welcome back if you are a returning viewer or listener. We're so excited to have you here today because today we are doing something a little bit out of the ordinary. We usually have one guest. Today we have two, and I'm super excited for our guests today. One of them is a long-time guest on the podcast, been on several times, Kent Brown. And now today we've got Matt Parker joining us. He's another real estate agent who works with Kent. And we are going to be going over some really valuable stuff. We're going to be talking about expired leads. We're going to be going over the state of expireds today. And then we're going to be digging into objections and objection handlers, how these two gentlemen work with expireds, what they say on the phone, exchanging a lot of tips and tricks and scripts and a lot of great stuff. So we'll get going with that in a minute. Before we do, gentlemen, how are you both doing today?
Matt, you first.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm doing great. I can't complain. We're right close to Christmas time, and I'm looking forward to the break. So I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Same. I'm doing great because I was on Zoom with Matt today.
Nice. Were you guys doing some morning prospecting earlier?
I mean, yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, nice.
Not really. We were practicing though for this.
Okay, good. Getting
for
warmed
this
up
podcast.
Right.
We were wanting to give the folks a show today.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure everyone watching is looking forward to it. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping for anyone joining us live. Chat in, say hi, tell us where you're from. If you have any questions or, shout outs for Kent or Matt here or any feedback, please put it in the chat. As always, like and subscribe on YouTube. Join our Facebook group. You can watch us every week, Thursdays at 1:30 Mountain Time. So yeah, check that out. To start off, Kent, we've had you on the podcast a million times. You've told your story so many times. I hope people aren't getting sick of you, Kent. I sure am not, but we've got a fresh face with us here today. Matt, could you just take a couple minutes to give us your story, your background, maybe how you got into real estate, and maybe some of your recent successes or experiences with expireds?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in real estate for about 7 years. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep and sales trainer with many different pharmaceutical companies. I did that for about 15 years. And then just really didn't like the way the pharmaceutical industry was turning. So I got out of that about 7 years ago and started in real estate. And quite honestly, I didn't quite know how to get business in real estate. And I heard someone say, you need to call FSBOs and expireds. And at the time, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even understand. And so I started reading a little bit more about it and looking on the internet about expireds and FSBOs and what is that. And thought, okay, well, that sounds like a good way to get business. So I just got on the phone and started making phone calls. And lo and behold, I started setting appointments and just honing my skill with expireds and FSBOs. And it really was kind of a baptism by fire because there was no one in my office. We had 150 agents in our office, and nobody was calling FSBOs and expireds. Not that I knew of. I even asked my broker.
Really?
Yeah. So at the time, I was the only guy doing it, and I thought, is this? Am I doing right? I mean, I had no clue. I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So I just kept calling, kept getting appointments, kept setting appointments, and getting listings. And ultimately won Rookie of the Year in my office as a result of it. And I thought, I must be doing something right. So maybe I'll double down on this.
Nice.
And as time went on, I got better and better and better. I did a lot of, learning about objection handlers and, how to deliver my scripts and how to go on listing appointments and how to compete. All of that stuff came from expireds and FSBOs. And so I'm very thankful for that. At one point, I set 88 expired listing. Well, expired, I think like 5 of them were FSBOs, but the rest of them were expireds, 88 listing appointments, and ended up taking 54 listings that year with expireds. And, that's tough when you're a single agent, you're doing it on your own.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a lot.
I didn't even have a transaction coordinator. And that, note to self and to everybody watching, if you get to that point calling expireds, hire an assistant, maybe a virtual, get a TC, do something. Don't do what I did,
right?
Because that can burn you out. But so expireds disappeared for a little bit. now they're back. I say disappeared. They never go away.
Right.
They certainly dropped, and now they're back with full force in my market. And so it's great business to go after. So
awesome.
That's what I'm doing.
Well, I love that, Matt. That's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just have a couple questions as you're talking. One is, you say that you just heard from somebody that expireds and FSBOs are the way to go.
Yeah.
Maybe you should call them, right? You kind of went in. Did you have any idea of kind of the strategy or philosophy or the theory behind it, that these are low-hanging fruit? These are people raising their hands saying, I'm trying to sell my home, or I recently failed to sell my home. Help me. Or did you just kind of go for it?
No, I was really thinking, and this is something that I regret, is I did not follow up with my sphere of influence like I should have. I just didn't. I had a fear of calling people I knew and telling them I was in real estate. So I thought, well, heck, I could call strangers, because if a stranger's not nice to me, I don't care. They're a stranger. So I thought I'll do that. And but to answer the first part of your question, I did. I was listening to a real estate coaching podcast, and they were talking about expired listings and why it was a good thing to call. And I heard this over and over and over. And so in my mind, that was just, in real estate, that's just how you get business. You call expireds.
Right.
And so that's what I did. The sphere of influence, past client, well, I didn't have any past clients, but the sphere of influence, I was just too nervous at the time. I'm kind of kicking myself, because now I have to go back and try to call those people years later and recreate relationships with them. So it made it a lot tougher. But expireds you're absolutely right. They are low hanging fruit. I heard that they were, and I needed business, and I needed it quick. So that's why I started calling.
Awesome. And what area do you work in, Matt? Where are you from?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. Okay, great. Because what I'm excited to get into, and we'll do this next, is when we get into some of these objections, we'll get into some of these, the state of expireds. I'm excited to hear the similarities and differences regionally, right? Because I think the advice some agents give for expireds or FSBOs or whoever might be different in different parts of the country. Kent, we know you're here in Utah. So we'll dig into some of those similarities and differences. Kent, let's have you go next. What are you seeing and feeling and hearing about expireds? Matt touched on it a little bit. He said the last couple of years of the pandemic, they went way down, right? Now they're back up. What are you seeing, Kent? How are you noticing what's going on with expireds these days?
Yeah, we've seen a huge shift in them. From like 1 or 2 a day, maybe. And those were ones that canceled and then just sat there and marinated for 3 months and then eventually expired. So they're like, what the heck? We came off the market like 3 months ago. So a little bit different. People are sitting on the market for a lot longer. So expireds are truly becoming like real expireds. I don't know if you've seen that too, Matt. Instead of they were on the market for 3 days, canceled, changed their minds, whatever it is. So we've seen that, and then we've just seen more of them. Okay. A lot more of them. And competition, I feel like, has gone way down. More and more people are getting out of the industry. So it's funny because you'll still call them and they'll be like, oh, I've had 5 calls today. And you're like, that's it? 5 calls? Yeah. What are you complaining about? Yeah. You're lucky.
Yeah. I was about to ask about the competition, because I know a lot of people avoid expireds and some of this low-hanging fruit. Because it's low-hanging fruit, they get a lot of attention, right? They get a lot of agents calling them. And I'm sure that's an objection that we'll get into. But that's good to hear. Matt, are you noticing about the same there?
Yeah, absolutely. They're staying on the market a lot longer before they expire or terminate. I think there is less competition because of the time of year that we're in. I think a lot of agents are just kind of kicking the can down the road and saying, in January, I'm really going to work hard and make my year better. 2024 is going to be great, but I'm not going to do anything now to make it.
Right. Got to build up my energy.
That's exactly right.
Got to save my energy for next year.
I got to carb up. So now's the time. And I know this from experience. Kent knows it. Everybody in real estate who's been in real estate for longer than 12 months knows that your first quarter started in October of this year. And so you want to build a listing inventory, and it's a great way to do that with expireds, so that when we come into the first part of the year, we're firing on all cylinders, because there's a lot of indication that January is going to be one of the busiest Januaries we've had in a long time, because there's a lot of pent up demand. Interest rates are dropping. There's a lot of activity if you take the time to look. And I think a lot of realtors are not doing that. So my hope is they get on the stick and start working.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, let's call out the timing on this. I mean, it's the end of the year. We're a couple of days away from the holidays starting at the end of 2023 here. Hopefully agents have been, like you said, Matt, planning as far back as October, but anyone who isn't, or anyone who doesn't know how they need to kick off the new year, please pay attention to this podcast, because we're going to dive in and show you how to really get that low-hanging fruit and how to handle those phone calls and get going. So let's transition into that, gentlemen. I'm basically going to turn it over to you guys. Let's go over what are the main objections you're hearing. How are you handling them? What are some nuances and scripts? If you guys want to do some role plays or some back and forth, feel free to do that. I'll be here listening and I'll interject when I have questions. But
this is what Matt and I prepared for all morning. So
okay, awesome. Let's get into it.
Saddle up. Hey, really quick.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Matt, did we meet because I sold you REDX once upon a time?
Yes, actually. It's funny.
How funny is that?
Yeah, it was funny because when I got a thing from REDX and it had a video, and I was like, holy crap, that's Kent on the video. So
I love that. Yeah.
Bringing
agents together at REDX.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, there we go. Anyways, now Matt and I are best friends, and he actually had hair, and then he met me and lost it all.
That's right.
Oh, no.
I was like, just hanging around with Ken, I had to, look at
it's
that.
Contagious.
Yeah, it is.
Watch out. I better watch out.
So we wrote down, we went through, okay, what are the top objections? And we're just going to kind of role play them. You can kind of hear how Matt does it. Everything I do, I copy from Matt. So there's really two types of hay: the hay before it goes into the horse and the hay after it comes out of the horse. So when you hear from me, it's the hay after it came out of the horse. When Matt handles the objection, though, it's before. It's coming straight from the horse. So let's do this, Matt.
That's a lot of pressure. I feel like,
no, Kent, you do fine. I'm sure Matt's great, but
people watching this are going to go, that guy's an idiot. What are you doing? All right.
So you have a few with objections. You're going to kind of see a trend. So a couple of things to write down if you're listening and in a spot that you can write down. When you get an objection, you should smile when you get one, because that means that they wouldn't be giving us an objection if they're not considering meeting with us or working with us.
Even if they don't know it yet, maybe?
Yeah. Even if they don't, like, subconsciously, they're just like, people don't want to tell you just flat out what they're thinking. And so they form it in an objection.
Right.
So there's brush offs, which you get at the beginning of the call, and that's not necessarily, hey, we're thinking about working with you. So there's brush offs, which we're going to go over. And then there's like truly objections of, hey, what do you charge for your commission? And that's essentially, I'm not seeing the value. I really like what you're saying over the phone, but I don't see the value to pay you a full commission. I want to decide what you charge before I actually take the time to meet with you. Anyways, Matt was saying something. Matt, go.
I was going to say, I think you're absolutely right. And you'll notice, I mean, if you call expired, you're going to get hung up on. That does happen. So, but what I've noticed is that when someone does hang up on you, it's the weirdest phenomenon. They do it, but they'll pause for about a split second before they do.
Yes.
Not interested, but they have the phone right here. They haven't hung up yet, because they subconsciously want to hear you say something that will spark their interest. And it is such an amazing phenomenon. When someone gives you an objection, you need to be able to handle it quickly, because if you don't, they're waiting. I don't hear it. Click. Right. And so it doesn't mean you have to be amazing on the phone. You'll get amazing over time. You'll get really good over time. You just have to practice. And the best practice is actually doing it. And so let's quit talking about it. Let's do it, man.
Let's do it. Hey, Matt, we're just going to go through them one by one. Do you think that's good, Andrew?
Yes, I love that.
We're talking about. Okay, so First one is, this is a brush off. Hey, thanks for the call. We're not selling anymore, Matt.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know. I understand. When you were selling, what had you interested in getting it sold to begin with?
Well, we were just moving to Houston.
Oh, is that right? Now, have you guys decided that you're no longer moving to Houston?
I mean, we might do it sometime later, but right now we're gonna stay.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. If I could show you a way that we could get your property back on the market, get it sold for what you need to get you to Houston, would you at least want to sit down with me for about 15 minutes so I could discuss it with you and show you how we can get it sold?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you more objections. Usually more objections come up, but
and they
we're going to go through them one by one.
Yeah, but one by one. And so that's typically how I would handle it. Hey, if I can show you, would you be interested to know how we could do it? Right.
So something really interesting that Matt does is you can see he repeated it. Hey, I get it. You're going to stay. He approved. So repeat, massive approval. Then he asked a follow-up question and then he closed. So every question is an opportunity to close, which he did, which is why he's so good with expireds. Because how many times will you close an expired, Matt? I am on the phones with you every day, and you probably close 5, 6, 7 times.
Yeah, I'm always asking for the appointment, and when handling an objection, I know Kent does this too. It's handle it, step around it, close. Handle it, step around it, close. Handle it, step around it, close. It's this wash, rinse, repeat over and over and over. It's not rocket science. It's just practice. So.
Right.
And it's really important to know phone objections are different than objections in person. Objections in person, rarely do you get them if your presentation's strong enough. Mike Ferry says that all the time. So if the weaker your presentation is, the more objections you're going to get, and it's super true. But over the phone, you're just going to get them because they don't know you. You haven't really given a ton of value. You've just handled things logically and then closed them on that emotion of moving to Houston. So, love it.
All right.
Matt,
how about
your
this?
turn.
All right. You know what? We're going to continue. We're just going to rent it. We wanted to sell it, but we're just going to rent it.
I totally get it. So you've decided to rent out the property. Let me ask you this, Matt. Was that plan A to rent it out and become a property manager, or was that plan B?
Well, I mean, we initially wanted to sell it, but the market is such that we're just gonna rent it. I think we'll be better if we just rent it.
Okay, so just kind of have given up because of the market. Then, am I hearing that right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Love it. What had it sold? Where were y'all headed to next?
Utah.
That's super exciting. What's taking you to Utah?
Well, my wife has an opportunity there. It's one that would have been really good for her career, but she still has it open to her. We just can't pursue it at this time.
Okay. So it's still open to her, but you can't pursue it. Is that because of the home then that you can't pursue it, or?
We can't at this point. We're not willing to take a loss on it, and we'll have to find something to do before we move.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So if we could ultimately get you to Utah, get the money that you need for that move to make sense, and find allow your wife to take that opportunity, would you be open to just a 15-minute appointment before you ultimately gave up on plan A of getting the home sold?
Yeah, I guess we would.
Okay. I'm usually available in the mornings or afternoons. Which is better for you and your
afternoon?
wife?
My wife works.
Okay. Then just close.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And typically, and you know this, Andrew, these go a lot. They can go a lot deeper. But if we can, if we're not going to hit all of these objection handlers, and I think the audience would really want to see different objection handlers handled and how we would handle them.
Right.
Instead of going deep down the rabbit hole on each one. So
sure. Absolutely.
That was kind of our thinking ahead of time.
It's kind of like that straight line. Like people, it really is like the straight line with your scripting. And that's why scripting is so important, is because people will give you an objection and then they're going to ask you more questions. And that's why objections are so awesome, because if they're giving you more, it's because you pique their interest somewhere, which is why they're staying on the phone with you.
Right.
When people are done, they just, hey, I don't have time for this. I need to go. And they try to rush you off the phone. But if they're sitting there asking you questions in an objection form, it's a very good thing.
Right.
You just have to know how to answer them. So, okay, what about this one? Matt, you agents all do the same thing. what are you going to do different than my last agent?
That's a great question, Kent, and I appreciate you asking. I'm not 100% sure what your previous agent did when they had it listed, but one thing I can tell you is that it didn't work. And with our team, we have an excellent marketing plan. And right now, what I have discovered is it is not the market as much as it is the marketing, because in your neighborhood, properties are closing every day. Properties with your amenities, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footages, those are closing every single day of the week. And I'm shocked that yours hasn't. So I really think what your property needs is a strong marketing campaign to get it back on the market and get it sold. And what I'd like to do is meet with you for about 30 minutes and show you what our aggressive marketing plan looks like. Now, I like to meet with folks in the afternoons or the evenings. I have available 4:30 today. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that works.
All right.
Awesome. I love that one, Matt, because a lot of people, I mean, Kent, you mentioned early on, there's fewer agents today than there were during the pandemic and the last few years when real estate was easy. And I think it's because the market shift maybe scares some agents away, right? Real estate isn't easy anymore. So I'm going to get out and go do something else. But I love this idea, Matt, that you said it's not the market, it's the marketing, because people are still buying homes every day, regardless of interest rates, regardless of inventory, regardless of all these things. It's about the marketing. And let me show you what I can do to market your home better than the last agent. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I've adapted that from Kent. So,
okay. Nice.
That's the hay into the horse. That came from Kent. remember, Kent and I, we're on Zoom. We prospect together just about every single day of the week on Zoom together. So we pick up a lot from each other, which is wonderful. And I will tell you, if I had been pushed on that,
right.
If someone had pushed me a little bit, we have some very interesting statistics, as most MLSs do in their front dashboard. For instance, in ours, single family homes in the last 24 hours, 429 properties have sold in the last 24 hours in our MLS system.
Wow.
700 properties have gone under contract in the last 24 hours. In our MLS. Now, our MLS, I'm in Houston. So
how would you phrase that? Like if someone pushes you back, how would you phrase that in a question?
Well, Kent, let me give you a very specific example. Okay, these are for single family homes. This isn't lot land. This isn't high rise condos. This isn't townhomes. This isn't any of that. This is single family homes, just like yours. In the last 24 hours, 429 have sold. 700 have gone under contract throughout our MLS system. That's a ton of properties that are moving. So when I hear someone tell me, and I understand your concern, when I hear someone tell me nothing's happening in the market, I completely disagree, because we have an amazing market and houses are closing every single day. And I want to show you specifically how we can make your house be one of those. So again, I have this afternoon at 4:30 available. Would that work for you?
Yeah, that works.
And then, Of course, you print this out and bring those statistics and then blow their mind, because even their agent, when this is an expired listing, and this happens a lot with agents, Kent and I say this all the time, when your agent stops communicating with you, they've lost. They
Perfect.
They have lost their confidence that they can sell your property. So they quit communicating with you. They just go dark on the seller, and they're like, "Well, I never heard from my agent." That's because they lost their confidence that they'd actually be able to sell it for you. They don't know what to tell you, right? And that happens all the time. So let me talk to you about how we're going to sell your property, and look what's going on. Because then the agent follows back up with the seller and says, Mr. Seller, we're at a time of the year, nothing's selling. It's the market, it's the interest rates. So the agent is blaming it on everything else, when what they're saying is just, it's not quite true. The market is showing something very, very different.
Yep.
I love
Much more to do with the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And how often does presenting that hard data, right, saying X number of homes have sold, X number have gone under contract, how often does that work, or how does that typically, in your, what you've observed, is that pretty effective in shifting the conversation and helping them open up to an appointment?
It is, because you are now trusted. You are now a data-driven agent, not an emotion-driven agent, right? Because most agents are like, I don't know. And if you have data backing up what you say, then you create this trust, you create this rapport with the prospect very, very quickly.
Right. And being proactive with that data and presenting it to them even without asking, I think is very effective too.
Yeah, because if they're bringing that up, it's because what Matt said, their agent just is communicating, oh, the market's really bad, interest rates are terrible.
Excuses.
Nothing's selling right now. Like you're one of many that's not selling. So as soon as Matt brings that up, they're like, what the heck? Mine should have sold.
Right.
I'm not going to go back with this other agent. I'm going to interview now.
Right.
I had I think it was last year. I got a property under contract on Christmas Day.
Wow.
So yeah, my wife was not happy about that because I was in a spare bedroom in my in-laws' house negotiating the deal with the agent. However, made for a great Christmas. But here's the point. Properties are selling every day. They do.
Literally every day, even on big holidays.
Yeah. Christmas Day, for God's sake. So when someone says, nothing's happening, I'll throw in that story. I say, well, that's not actually true. Last year I sold one on Christmas Day. Yeah. And let's look at the data. And I always tell them when we meet, because I'm very assumptive, when we meet, I'm going to bring this data to you and show it to you. I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to show it to you. So you'll see what I'm telling you is true. And again, creates rapport and trust. So
awesome. I love that.
All right, Kent, I got one for you. I'm going to wait until ... In this particular instance, it would be I'm going to wait until spring because that's the big one.
Yeah. No, you're going to wait until spring. I can certainly understand the logic in that, Matt. I think most people feel just like you. Let me ask you this. If you knew that by waiting until spring, you'd be leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table, would you have to wait until spring or could you move up that timeline?
Well, how am I going to leave tens of thousands of dollars? Spring is when the market picks up. I figure I'm going to make more money in the spring.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a spring market, certainly. But here's what worries me a little bit about the spring market. I talk to people just like you every single day who feel the same. So you've heard of the law of supply and demand, right?
Of course.
So if we have a ton of supply flooding the market with the same amount of buyers that are out there right now looking for homes, and maybe we bump up 1 or 2%, your house is going to be lost among all the many that are waiting until spring. So if we can get it on the market now, we're going to run into more serious buyers who have less inventory to choose from, and that makes your home more desirable. So with less supply, still really high demand, that puts you in a great position to make more money. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Well, okay. That makes sense.
So let's go ahead and do this. Let's get together for a quick 20-minute appointment. If the numbers make sense, if it makes sense to you to list now, we'll get it on the market, ensure that you get top dollar for your property. If you still feel like after our meeting you want to wait until spring, let's talk about those options as well. I'm available in the afternoon or evenings. Which is better for you?
Perfect. Evenings.
Evenings?
Yeah, oh. Evenings, because I'm making prospecting calls in the morning.
Oh, whoa. How about this one? I've been getting this one. We're going to wait until the market gets better.
That's a good point. I'm glad you said that, Kent. Can you explain to me what you mean by get better? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I've just heard on the news that no homes are selling, interest rates are really high, so we're just going to wait until interest rates come down and we can make way more money on our house.
I understand that. And I'll be honest with you, that makes perfect sense to do that. But if I could show you that waiting would actually cost you money, tens of thousands of dollars in most cases, would you still have to wait? Or would you want to sell it now?
I mean, if I knew it was going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars, I would want to do it now. Okay.
Well, then I definitely want to meet, and that's exactly why you and I need to meet, Kent, because if you wait, and I do want to explain to you why waiting could really hurt you. Right now, we're in an excellent market for sellers like yourself. Excellent. And I'd like to explain to you why when we meet. I like to meet with folks in the afternoons or the evenings. Now, I'm going to tell you, Andrew, if I have to go deep into an objection handler, I'm trying to step around it because I don't want to have to go through all of that on the phone.
Right.
I want to handle the objection and set the appointment and then deal with whatever their issue is face to face. Because then I can show them stats, I can show them data, I can show them all kinds of reasons. I don't want to go into a deep dive. So I'm going to say, hey, I acknowledged your issue. I understand what you're saying. If I can show you that what you're thinking may be incorrect, would you be interested in hearing why, if doing it now would make you money? So I personally wouldn't go deep on that. Kent, would you on something like that? How would you?
No, but I thought you handled it really well. The one thing I might do, if they gave you kickback, I would always go back to, hey, totally get it. You'd still want to wait. Let me ask, Matt, when you sell this home, are you planning on purchasing another home or are you renting?
Right.
No, we're going to purchase. Okay. So let's say maybe you don't sell for top dollar of what you could get a year or two from now. But if you sell high, what are you typically doing?
Going to buy high. You're
going to buy high. You're going to hire a powerful agent like myself who's going to help you sell high and then negotiate on your behalf to help you buy low. I mean, sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So something like that. Here's something. So we always talk about expireds take a tremendous amount of skill, like new agents. You can certainly still get expired listings as a new agent or someone that's brand new, but market statistics, Matt said this, Matt is highlighting this better than anybody else. Knowing those market statistics gives you confidence on the phone. So you should know your total homes for sale, new listings added last month, new pendings last month, new close last month, average days on market. You should know all of those, all 5 of those stats. And if you do, these expired calls will be a lot more powerful.
Yeah, and most MLS systems, they have a dashboard as you log into the MLS system. They have a dashboard in which you can manipulate it and have that data available. So I'd love to tell you that I take the time to go and pull all that data every day. Heck no. I
just do it once a month.
That's right. I put it on my dashboard and my MLS system updates that for me. So I can kick over to that dashboard when I'm talking to an expired and say, well, let me tell you what's under contract right now. And then we can even narrow it further, and most MLS systems allow you to do this. Let's look at not just your neighborhood, but the surrounding, maybe your zip code. Like, here's what's going on in your zip code. Because they're like, nothing's happening. I mean, my neighborhood's not selling. And in some neighborhoods, that's true. And I had someone tell me that, and I'm like, whatever. And then I look at the neighborhood, and sure enough, nothing's happening in that neighborhood. But as soon as I stepped outside of that neighborhood, boom, everything turned red. I was like, man, look at all the sell properties outside the neighborhood. So there's a lot going on in the market, and that's what we want to focus on, the market itself, and how to get their property back on the market. So, all right. How about this one? Go ahead.
So one more thing to add, and I lost it. Never mind. Let's go. Next one. I'll remember it.
So we get this one a lot, and it's kind of a funny one. So you're the 25th agent to call me today.
Holy cow.
We used to, but we still hear it.
I'm the 25th agent to call me. I am shocked you still answered my call. I'm sure realtors are the only ones calling you today. Let me ask you, Matt, had the property sold, where were you headed to next?
That's perfect. I love how you just danced around the sombrero and went straight to the.
Yeah.
I think that was.
I mean, it adds
no. Don't even acknowledge it. I'm like,
Is that how you handle it? The same? Do you handle it the same way, Matt?
No, and I say, well, I said, well, sometimes I'll say, it just depends on if I'm feeling a little combative. I was like, well, you're lucky that I called you because I'm actually calling to help you. It looks,
nice.
It looks to me like you've had your property on the market and you're unsuccessful in getting it sold. And I'm calling to walk you through how exactly I'm going to get it back on the market and ultimately get it sold for you and net you tens of thousands of dollars more than you can get any other way. I like to meet with folks in the afternoons or evening. I've got 4:30 available this afternoon. Would that work for you? And just
turn it right into a close.
That's exactly right. And just see. It doesn't hurt, right? I can already tell they're a little upset. They're not upset with me. And a lot of agents will make this mistake. If you're calling expireds and you get someone who seems upset, it's because they are, but they're not upset with you. They're upset at the circumstance that they're in, right? They're upset that their property didn't sell. They're upset that they wanted to move to Utah or Houston or wherever, and they couldn't do it. They're upset that they're getting a bunch of phone calls from agents. Where were those agents when they were trying to sell their property? Right. So they're not upset at you, the agent, they're upset at the circumstance. And so if you have a calm voice, and if you're reassuring, and if you give them data and you tell them, hey, look, I can solve your problem, because it's the whole purpose, right? You've got a problem and I can help you solve it. Let's meet so I can show you how. That's the premise. And if you keep that in your mind, you don't take that kind of stuff personal.
Absolutely. And it seems like this one is potentially a little bit intimidating to some agents, but really it's very simple. This is not an objection about their past agent. It's not an objection about the market. It's not an objection about the property itself or the money or the commissions or anything. It's an objection about, like, I'm just getting a bunch of phone calls, right? It's which makes that point A to point B, overcome the objection, get the appointment, much shorter, right? There's no stops along the way. There's no diverging from that path. It's just, let's just have other people are calling you. Okay, let's set an appointment. I love that. Simple.
Right. Yeah, really all they're saying is I'm frustrated with all the calls. But they don't say that. They phrase it, and then they, exaggerate the number of agents that have called them. But you have to think as well, a lot of the calls that these agents or that these homeowners are getting are from ISAs and skilled agents. There's probably 3 or 4 skilled agents that are actually calling them. And so these ISA, these unskilled agents, they know, if I say this, 90% of the time, people just say, I am so sorry, and hang up.
Right.
Which is conditioning the homeowner to just say, well, freak, I'm just going to say, oh, we already have an agent. You're the 10th agent to call me. And they just throw out these brush offs because it works.
So, I just thought of something kind of funny. It would be like, if someone says, I may write this down and use it. So if someone says, you're the 25th agent who's called me, I'm going to say, oh my gosh, then let me come over right now so that we can get it relisted and get these calls to stop. Let's just go right now. Let me come over right now and show you how we're going to get these calls to stop. We're going to get your property back on the market. I don't know. Haven't worked through that yet. We'll see.
I think one really important thing with that is they're demonstrating I'm frustrated. Right. So meet them where they're at. Oh, that must be so frustrating, which is essentially like, I hear you.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the, just say, gosh, I understand that you're giving a repeat of their question. You're giving massive approval, and then you're asking a question, right? We talk about that all the time. Yep. So the steps of an objection handler. All right.
Okay. What about this one? We're still selling. Bring me a buyer.
So bring you a buyer. Well, I would love to bring you a buyer, but I need to see your property first. Now, we do have a lot of buyers that are ready to buy properties in your area, but because I haven't walked through your property, I'm going to have a real hard time doing it. How about you and I meet this afternoon, and I'll let you know if we have a buyer for your property this afternoon after I take a look at it, because I have a couple of buyers that I think might be interested. I like to meet with folks at around 4:30. Do you have 4:30 available today?
Yeah.
All right.
One thing I would do is, and while I'm there, I'll show you exactly how we're not just going to bring a buyer to your property. We're going to bring a stream of buyers to your property, which is ultimately what you want, right? You don't want just a buyer. You want a stream of buyers, which will net you tens of thousands of dollars more. Right.
Yep. And tell me if I'm wrong. This sounds very similar to a common for sale by owner objection, which is, well, do you have a buyer? Right.
Yep. Well, and I would handle a for sale by owner objection in a very similar way. Right. Well, I can't tell you if I have because I do know there are scripts that say, yes, we have tons of buyers and I have a buyer for your property. And for me, I don't really like that because I don't want to start the possible relationship on the wrong foot with a for sale by owner. So I'm like, no, I can't promise you that I have a buyer for your property, but if I can see your property, we do have buyers because we always have buyers. I may have a buyer for your property. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it to know if it's even going to fit the criteria of a buyer that I have. And that is the truth. I just know. I mean, I couldn't say. And the same thing with expireds. You don't get that one a lot, but you do get it with expireds. Just bring me a buyer. I'm not going to relist it. Just bring me a buyer. And I'll pay you a 3% commission. So,
yeah. And one thing, you could even turn that back on them. Again, this is it's a skill. Calling expireds and FSBOs is skill, meaning you have to know different ways to handle this. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to say this one magic thing and they're going to meet with me. Right. But another thing you could say is, hey, Matt, by you just saying, bring me a buyer, demonstrates that you still want to get the home sold. So if we can help you get the home sold, is that what you're looking for?
I like that one. That's good.
And if they say no, then say
take notes on that. I'm gonna.
Yeah, just by you
put this call together, you just gave me a new objection handle.
Horse. After
hey,
I'm the back end of the horse on that.
So there's different ways that you can handle objections, but the funny thing is there's really 3 or 4 objections that people give you, but they fit into categories.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen that, Matt? So it's not like there's 20 different objections that you're getting and you need 6 ways to handle each one. There's 4 categories. And as long as you have 6 objections for each 4 of those categories, with expireds, you're playing a percentages game and not necessarily a numbers game. So your percentages are going to go up.
Well, and here's a good example of that, Kent. Look, bring me a buyer. Nothing is selling. I'm gonna wait. Oh crap! I didn't even know that. Oh, let's try this. Hold on. See if that. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what that is, and I don't. Here's the important part. I don't know how to turn that off. I was doing a listing presentation on a Zoom call just last week. It was an expired listing too, by the way, on a Zoom call, and I did something like I said the number 2 or something like that, and that happened, and of course they got a kick out of it. That was good. So, but okay, I'm going to wait until ... Nothing is selling. I'm not interested. It's not for sale. Those are all kind of in a category because once you get one, they're almost assuredly going to say the other. Right?
Yep.
I'm not interested. Okay, we've handled that, and you kept them on the phone. Yeah, but we're going to wait until spring. Okay, well, you've handled that. I'm just not selling it this time, right? So then you handle that, and they're not the exact same, but they're in the same category. And so once you handle one, you're going to find real quick that you're going to handle another. And a lot of times in the handling of that category, you've handled 2 or 3.
And where do most agents give up after we're not selling? Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Where are you calling me? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing. So once you get past that first that first brush off, you might get one objection, and then after that, it's just like you're setting an appointment with them.
Right. And what I find is what I really like is when you start talking to these expireds, you get past their objection or 2, because that's usually all that it is before you get to the point where you're going to set an appointment with them. Then they start asking you questions, and you go, I got you. Now I get to go in and be of service to you and show you how I'm going to get your property sold. So I really like that.
So here's a big one that we're getting right now. We're going to list with the same agent. Which, why do people say that, Matt? Because it's easier. People just want easy. Like, I've had 20 phone calls. It's just easier for me. The devil I know is better than the devil I don't know.
Right.
Type of mentality.
And and I find that very interesting that you're going to, and I can certainly appreciate your loyalty to that agent. But let me ask you this: what is more important to you, getting your property sold or listing it again with that same agent? That's one way to handle it. Another way is to say, I can understand wanting to go with the same agent, and I can appreciate your loyalty. What do you think your agent is going to do differently this time that they didn't do last time?
Well, they have some different marketing plans that they're going to implement, and we're going to lower the price.
Okay. Yep. Do you mind if I ask? Do you find that a little bit frustrating? Because if they're going to implement new marketing, it seems to me that they probably would have done that up front. What I find most of the time, Kent, is that when an agent puts your property on the market for as long as yours has been on the market, that agent has done everything they know how to do. And that's no fault of the agent. It's just their limited amount of knowledge. What I would like to do is sit down with you, take 20 minutes of your time, and show you our very aggressive marketing plan that is going to be drastically different than what you've done before or what you're used to, because ours will actually get your home sold. Now, I like to meet with folks in the afternoons or the evenings and then go right back into the close. Because the whole point is they've already done it. You're going to go back and do the same thing. You're probably going to get the same thing you've already gotten. Let's try something different. At least get a second. And of course, you can ask them the question, wouldn't you at least want to hear a second opinion, or at least have a new set of eyes on how this property could be marketed differently to ultimately get it sold for you?
Yep, I love it. So one thing I would add in to the end of that is saying, hey, you know, I can appreciate you want to list with the same agent. Do you feel like they did everything they possibly could do when the home was listed to get it sold?
Right.
Because that's a trap question. Well,
right. Well, it is, because what happens when I say, yeah, I do. I think they did everything.
That's exactly why we need to get together, so you can get a fresh perspective on what we're going to do to get your home sold. Because really, Matt, I'm sure you don't want to sit on the market for another 6 months while your agent tries another failed experiment to get your property sold. Failed marketing experiment to get your property sold.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's get together. I'm going to show you a plan that sold over, and throw in your market stats in there, because that makes you more credible. Whether that's a plan that your brokerage used, you used, your team used, that sold over 300 homes last year and netted our clients thousands of dollars more than they could get any other way. Ultimately, that's what you're looking for, right?
Absolutely. You know, and good point though is if you're a new agent and you don't have much stats, use your brokerage stats.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I had sold.
Or use your coaching stats. So like when I was brand new and was coaching with Mike Ferry, I used Mike Ferry's stats. Like, hey, this same marketing plan sold thousands of homes all over the country. Really? Yes. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about when we meet.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
The sizzle sells the steak, right, Andrew?
Yep.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, gentlemen, we are running a little bit low on time here for today's podcast, but are there any final objection handlers, any final points or things that you want to touch on before we wrap up today?
For me, there may be other objection handlers or maybe other objections. I think we've gone through a pretty exhaustive list, because quite honestly, with expireds, there's not a ton. There's a few, and as Kent said, you can even lump those few in categories. But once you learn how to handle those, you'll be okay. It is skill. And this is out to newer agents that are just starting into for sale by owners and expireds. It is a skill, but it's a very quickly learned skill. So I would encourage anybody, if you're thinking about calling for sale by owners and expireds, don't feel like you have to be amazing on the phone before you do it. I would strongly encourage you, get on the phone. You will figure it out on the phone. I promise you. That's exactly how I did it. I had no clue what I was doing. And I just got on the phone and started doing it. And guess what? It worked. So,
and you saw stuff that did work.
What's that?
And you saw stuff that did work. Just like the expired, when you call them, they're like, oh, when I say this, people hang up. I'm going to keep on saying it. So you as the agent should be saying, when I say this, people don't hang up. So I'm going to keep on doing it. When I go to these seller seminars that are held all over the country they've only really practiced 4 or 5 objections for 3 or 4 days and get really good at it. That was a joke. I don't go to seller. Sorry. That was a terrible joke. Homeowners do not practice these objections. They just say, boo. Hey, can you edit that out of this podcast, Andrew?
I'll do my best. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Let that stagnant fish just sit there for a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, that's all we have though.
Awesome.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank both of you gentlemen so much. That was amazing, because I think I'm hoping that people who are watching this or listening to this can take away a number of things. They can take away maybe a mindset shift of like, I don't need to be afraid of the market. I don't need to be afraid to call expireds. To your point, Matt, I just need to start. I need to do it. I need to practice practice makes perfect with anything, especially this. And that it really ultimately is not as scary or as intimidating as a lot of people think it is, right?
Nope.
It's
Nope,
easy
not
with
at all.
practice and it's effective, right? I mean, to your point, Matt, listing 54 or whatever expired listings in a year, amazing, right? 2, taking away the tactical kind of script oriented actual objection handlers that we did here today. I'm going to do my best to come up with a transcript, maybe an ebook, maybe a PDF where we can put all these objections in one place and share it in a link below. We'll do our best to get that together. But just listening to this podcast a few times, practicing the objections, and then finding a community of other agents to practice this kind of stuff with. Do either of you gentlemen have a place where you like to go to practice these kinds of things? I know you have each other, and that's lovely, but do you have other agents, other groups, maybe your brokerage?
That's lovely. That's so sweet. I know you have each other.
We do. That's all we need.
Yeah, that's right. We do. We have. We'll have at my brokerage. We'll have script practice and things like that, which is very helpful. So, and there's others, and I would love to say that we have it. We're very consistent with our script practice. Unfortunately, I'd be lying to you if I said that. We're not. We do get together and have these. Kent and I go. We kick this around a lot. Kent and I do. So I just feel like I
think we do a lot of live play. Like, right. And what I mean by that is just calling the consumer. And then if we get stuck, we say, hey, I ran into this. Right. What would you say? And then we kind of mastermind it for a little bit. Yeah. But one thing that is important, practice makes permanent. So,
right.
Make sure that when you're practicing and when you're role playing, you're being super concise about it. Like, role play isn't a time for, hey, I'm just going to go off the cuff. It's to be dedicated to the script and just using that script over and over and over and over again to drill it in your brain.
Awesome. Amazing advice. Thank both of you very much. This has been an amazing podcast. It's a little longer than usual, but I think that's amazing because it's full of tactical, action-packed stuff that people can actually take and implement into their businesses. So thank you.
And REDX roleplay system.
Sorry. And the REDX roleplay system. Yeah, thank you for that shameless plug, Ken. If you're a customer, if you're a REDX customer, and keep an eye out next week for an amazing deal where you'll get some extra training, some extra stuff. And one of our resources for customers is a live role play line where you can call in and actually practice your objections and your scripts with some trained people who are a lot of our support staff who hear about this stuff all day and are trained to help you workshop and practice those objections. So that's another great resource. Yeah, it's awesome. So to wrap up today, thank you both. Please return to this podcast to anyone watching to review and take notes and implement everything we've talked about today. And as always, we do this every week, right? So whether it's people like Kent and Matt or other experts and coaches and agents, we go live every Thursday at 1:30 Mountain Time. So please like and subscribe on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook. Join our Facebook prospecting community, and you can find other like-minded agents and support groups out there to practice this kind of stuff with, because ultimately you can get as much, coaching and support and study as many scripts as you want. But what it comes down to is taking action, actually doing the calls, actually prospecting, actually calling expireds, and getting this stuff really ingrained in your daily habits and routines and deep in your mind. So, gentlemen, thank you again. We're going to have you back on. We should schedule maybe a live prospecting so we can hear some of this stuff live in action. I think that'd be fun to take turns doing some calls. So
absolutely.
Awesome.
Jump on Zoom. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Thanks, guys. We're going to wrap up for today. We'll catch you, I believe, next week, same time, same place. So thank you.
Thank
you.